Hello, developers. Have you ever used a business application that asks you to sign in and create a new username and password? This can be incredibly frustrating for end users because they need to remember yet another password. It's even more frustrating for IT admins because they can't manage the security, policy, and compliance of the application within their organization. If you're interested in building business applications that get the best single sign-on experience, apps that access rich data from APIs such as Microsoft Graph, and are easy to manage by IT, you're in the right place. My name is Said Akhtar. I'm a lead program manager working on developer experiences within the identity division, and I'm joined by Brandon Warner and Haley Hamilton, who will demo some exciting capabilities on the Microsoft Identity Platform. The format today is a short introduction to the Microsoft Identity Platform, and then we'll cover 3 topics with 7 minutes each. We'll start with browser privacy controls that impact single sign-on experiences and single-page applications. Then we'll cover how to take your existing iOS and macOS applications and enable single sign-on. And then we'll wrap up with the end-of-life roadmap for ADAL and steps on how to migrate to MSAL. If you're interested in a particular topic, feel free to skip ahead. Let's start with the benefits. By using the Microsoft Identity Platform, you're giving all the heavy lifting to Microsoft, such as permissions and consent, compliance, privacy, auditing, and more. This saves you time and money because you can focus on shipping your app. But it's not just about saving time and money. Your application is going to be more successful because of 4 reasons. First, you'll be able to reduce the sign-in friction. The Microsoft Identity Platform enables users to sign in with their preferred identity using a familiar user experience. Second, security is enforced by Microsoft. You'll always get the latest in identity innovation, such as passwordless. Third, your app will be easy to manage by IT and comply with IT policy. And fourth, you'll be able to access data securely, calling your own API or APIs such as Microsoft Graph. To summarize, by using the Microsoft Identity Platform, you'll save time, reach lots of users, and your app will be future-proof, getting all the latest innovation in identity. Now let's see what you get as a developer. One portal to register all of your applications. One set of Microsoft authentication libraries that give you the best single sign-on experience and compatibility with policies set by IT, built on one standards-compliant endpoint, which is compatible with third-party libraries as well. You can securely access web APIs, such as Microsoft Graph or Azure Resources, or you can protect your own web APIs. This gives you the ability to authenticate any identity, from Azure AD accounts to Microsoft personal accounts to external identities. External identities could include users from another organization, social accounts such as Facebook or Google, or even just signing up with an email. And our platform is built on open industry standards. The Microsoft Identity Platform makes it easy to integrate identity into your application. Our first topic is browser security. Haley, can you tell us a little bit about privacy controls in modern browsers and how it impacts single sign-on?
Thanks, Sid. I'm going to tell you about the latest in browser privacy protection measures, how this can impact your single-page application, and how you can get started with a Microsoft Authentication library today to maintain a secure and seamless user experience. Cookies are central to our web browsing experience today, whether we realize it or not. We've all probably noticed some borderline creepy ad on one website targeting something that we were looking at on a completely different site. This kind of cross-domain user tracking is done through third-party cookies and is something that all modern browsers are trying to prevent. Safari, for instance, has already implemented a privacy protection measure called Intelligent Tracking Prevention, which will disable these third-party cookies, and other modern browsers are following suit. So, what does this have to do with identity? For a long time, an authentication flow called the implicit grant flow was the recommended way for single-page applications to acquire a token in the browser from an identity provider such as the Microsoft Identity Platform, and then use that token to access user resources. A common pattern with the implicit grant flow for maintaining a user session was to load a hidden iframe in the background and then use third-party cookies from the user's identity provider. Privacy measures such as intelligent tracking prevention will break this pattern by blocking third-party cookies and therefore will degrade the user's experience by requiring consistent interactive sign-in each time. Because of this conflict and other long-known vulnerabilities with the implicit flow, OAuth and OIDC now recommend using the authorization code flow with single-page applications. This flow allows single-page applications to use a proof key for code exchange protected authorization code from the authorization endpoint to exchange that for an access token and limited lifetime refresh token. One of the largest challenges we face here in identity is not sacrificing user experience for security, and vice versa. This flow is both the latest in security recommendations and will allow your application to continue using the Microsoft Identity Platform as expected. The limited lifetime refresh token will allow your application to silently acquire new access tokens without requiring consistent interactive sign-in from the user. The latest version of the Microsoft Authentication library for JavaScript will easily allow your application to take advantage of the authorization code flow and call the Microsoft Graph API or your own API. I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of just how easy it is to get started with the Microsoft Authentication library for JavaScript and get a single-page application up and running in just 1 minute using the authorization code flow. So I'm going to go ahead into my Azure portal and go to my application registration and go to the Quick Start section and select the authorization code flow single-page application. Click on Make these changes for me and I can get my ready to run, already configured code sample ready to download. I go ahead and open it in my code editor of choice. I've chosen VS Code. It's all ready to go, and all I have to do is run the npm commands, install any dependencies, and start the application. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open a Chrome browser, and Chrome is implemented as something similar to ITP, where in incognito mode, third-party cookies can be disabled by toggle. I go to my localhost server, sign in my user. For the initial time, I have to select the account and authenticate using passwordless authentication. So on my personal device, I'm picking this number and using a biometric PIN to authenticate myself. Then I can go ahead and use an access token to access user resources and see my profile. And then if I open the application again in another tab and sign in again, you can see that I will not have to interact again and sign in once more because there is a token already saved. And that's the refresh token used there. So as you can see, incredibly easy to get started with the Microsoft Authentication library for JavaScript and use the authorization code flow. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Brandon, who's going to tell you a little bit about SSO for your Apple devices.
Thanks, Haley. Brandon, I've got some existing iOS and macOS applications. Can you tell me a little bit about how I can bring those applications into the fold for single sign-on?
Thanks, Saeed. I'm Brennan Werner. I'm a program manager at Microsoft. I work primarily on the identity libraries for iOS, Android, and macOS. And I'm here today to talk about something that's extremely exciting. Apple and Microsoft have been working together for several years to bring an enterprise SSO extension model to iOS and macOS. And what that allows is the capabilities of the operating system that Apple provides can be leveraged to authenticate users and also to store their credentials. Meanwhile, on the Microsoft side, we've written an Azure Active Directory plugin, which is currently in public preview, that plugs into this extension model and gives you access to SSO across all of your applications, first and third party. So not only Microsoft applications, but also third-party applications. One of the big benefits of this extension model is one I'm going to be demoing today, which is that even if you don't have access to the SDKs or don't want to install the SDKs into your application, you can get SSO across your line of business applications and third-party applications today without changing any code, without using any SDK at all. Why this is important. We know that there are a lot of applications that your company uses that are out of date or use the older protocols such as SAML. Maybe a vendor wrote these line of business applications and you depend on them every day, but you don't have access to the source code, or you don't want to, for business continuity reasons, edit or change these applications at all. They have to keep working. At the same time, you want to make sure that SSO continues to work as well. Previously, you had to either use a technology like VPN in order to get that to work, or rewrite the application and use an SDK to get you that type of SSO. Now, however, with this new technology, you'll be able to get SSO across all the first and third-party applications, no matter what, no matter when they were written, or if they use SAML or Auth2, they will just work. So I will demonstrate that right now. So the first thing I wanted to do is show you the behavior of apps on a device before the SSO extension for Azure Active Directory is enabled. So what I've done is created 3 applications. The first 2 applications are simply our MSAL sample application that I've duplicated. And what I've done is change the bundle ID and also the developer account that each is signed with. So to the operating system, they're 2 separate applications. And again, this is a sample application for MSAL. We recommend you use the MSAL SDK if you connect to Azure Active Directory and are building new applications. MSAL provides you with the full feature set and benefits of Azure Active Directory, including passwordless, device sign-in, device certificate sign-in, as well as supporting conditional access and other important business flows. The third app we have is AppAuth. Example application. And this comes from the AppAuth SDK. It's an open source SDK, just like MSAL is, but this is more bare bones. It's maintained by the OpenID committee, and it allows any protocol or any service that supports OpenID Connect or OAuth2, this SDK can be used to connect to it. And because Azure Active Directory is standards compliant, you can use that example application for basic functionality into Azure Active Directory. So we're going to do that here. And you see already I have to sign in first to this account or to this application itself. And this is just a placeholder to show the sign-in experience. And you see already I typed it in a little bit wrong at first. And this is all part to demonstrate the pain, right? And so we have an API call I can do, the user info endpoint. You see I get some information from the user info endpoint. But if I go and click on this application now, you see I'm not signed in, which is really frustrating. So I have to click on this app or this sign in, and then I have to sign in again using these credentials. And if you have many line of business applications or many first and third party applications deployed on a device, you know how frustrating this can be. In particular, if you have older applications, you see here, I do get the same information. This one back from the Graph API, the Microsoft Graph API. So the user info endpoint and the Microsoft Graph API provide you with the same data. But again, if you have many applications, particularly line of business applications that use other protocols like SAML, you have to jump in and sign in to each and every application. And this gets very obnoxious very fast. And I'll show you now, once we've configured the SSO plugin, SSO extension for Azure Active Directory, how this experience changes and gets a lot better for your end users. So what I want to show you now is how to turn on this Azure Active Directory SSO extension that we've been working on. And it's very easy. You can turn this on with any MDM provider. However, we've done extra work to make it very easy for you to set this up inside of the Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that the SSO extension, the Azure Active Directory SSO extension, is delivered with the Microsoft Authenticator application. That application you're probably already familiar with. It's required for a lot of our awesome features, such as passwordless authentication, multi-factor authentication, as well as conditional access policy. So a lot of your employees will already have this application on the device, either got themselves or pushed down through MDM. And so what we're going to do now is demonstrate how you can turn on that SSO extension that lives inside the Microsoft Authenticator. So first we're going to click on Devices and click iPad and Apple OS. Actually, we're going to go down and click on Configuration Profiles. This is a configuration. And we're going to create a profile. Obviously, it's for iOS, iPad OS. And this is a device feature. So we're going to be adding a feature to the device. We're going to name it something pretty simple like SSO. And you see here we've added a new pull down called Single Sign-On App Extension. Now, if you use Endpoint Manager, you might have other SSO extensions that support the Apple standard that you'll want to turn on. So we have the ability to do that here. What you'll want to select though is Microsoft Azure Active Directory. That is our SSO extension. all the configuration that you'll need is automatically pulled in to the configuration. Now, what's neat is if you went ahead and pushed the policy here, you would already get SSO across all first-party applications. As soon as you select Microsoft Azure Active Directory and that goes down to your organization's devices, that turns on the SSO extension, and first-party apps, the Microsoft apps, will start using that. But you also see down here that we have app bundle IDs, which means we can add bundle IDs from third-party applications that your organization has installed on these devices already. These are line of business applications or third-party applications that you might have purchased. You can always ask your vendors who have given you the applications what the bundle IDs are. It's not any secret information. There's other ways to discover it as well yourself, but you'll need these bundle IDs to put them into this configuration. And what that does is it now extends the SSO extension to use those third-party applications as well as Microsoft applications. So it bridges the gap between first and third parties. So I have a few test applications already that I'll demonstrate working in a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put these bundle IDs in here. And you see the bundle IDs are usually located right here, bundle identifier in your applications. And I've already previously deployed these. To the device. All right. So here now you see we have all of the app ID bundles that we need. We're going to say, yes, we want to assign this to all devices. And here you go. We can check our work and click create. And that's all you have to do. Now, all we have to do is wait for the profile to get pushed down to iOS devices, and I will then go to the iOS device and show you this working. See you in a bit. So I waited a few minutes for that policy to push down to my managed device. And one of the things I wanted to show you is what we've configured. So here, if I click on the properties, again, this is the SSO configuration that we just created together. You'll see I have just two bundle IDs here. These are the two bundle IDs that I'm most interested in, the ones that I demonstrated previously that didn't have SSO. And if I click on device status here, you'll see that it did succeed, posted to one of my test iPhones, so we're ready to go. By the way, remember that any bundle ID you put in here, third-party bundle ID, will start to use the SSO extension, whether it uses SAML or OAuth 2. So now with that, let's see how the experience has changed. So I've given a few minutes for the policy that we just created to get pushed down onto the device. And now let's see how the behavior of the apps change. So here, first of all, you see that there are two additional apps that have been added, and I wanted to demonstrate what those are. So first, the company portal application, which you have to download if you are going to join a device with Intune, which is who we use as our MDM provider for this demonstration. And then the Authenticator app. And the Authenticator app, again, is just being pushed down in this example because it has the SSO extension, the Azure Active Directory SSO extension inside of it. So it gets pushed down through MDM policy, and then the configuration profile that we made turns it on. So now let's go into these applications and see how the experience changes. So we'll go back into the expense query, and if I click here, now all of a sudden you see I get a brand new experience, and I get a pick account. What this is the SSO extension now coming in because we've put those bundle IDs into the configuration. It's now listening for this communication to happen, intercepts it, and shows that I can choose an account to sign in with. Now, why is this account in here? Well, because I've signed in with the web already. So another neat feature of this SSO extension is that it connects to the web. So if you've signed into the web before, then you're going to have your credentials available to you inside of applications as well. In the same way, if you've signed into applications, you now have availability of your account on the web. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you see that I'm signed in. And there is the query from the Graph API. So let's go ahead and do the line of business app. Click here, and you see now I have the account picker. I have complete SSO. I do not have to worry about entering my credentials at all. So I'll go ahead and click that. And again, access the Graph API. Now, what about this third-party API or this third-party SDK that we're using? If you remember when I clicked on it, I had to sign in. and I was prompted to sign in. Well, now AppAuth acts a little bit differently than what you've seen, because the rest of the applications push select account, which is a way to tell the SSO extension that you want them to choose an account. But AppAuth doesn't have that logic already inside of it. Unlike the MSAL SDKs, it's very bare bones. So if I click authorize, you'll see that it pops up, sees that there's only one account in the system. And since I haven't used select account, it just grabs those credentials and uses it for the call. So seamless SSO, you don't even get prompted. So if I call user info endpoint here, you see that I get the same credentials. It's that easy. Also, if I go in here and click sign out and then click expense query, I wanted to also demonstrate that if you click the plus sign, you can add multiple accounts. You can add more accounts to this as well, and then they'll go into the account chooser experience, or of course you can just choose the one there. So as you can see, this is extremely powerful, because for the first time, without changing any code in your applications, without having to use any SDKs, what you've done is provided SSO across all your applications. And again, this includes line of business applications, applications that may have been written for you, applications that existed years that your business depends on, but you don't know how to edit or alter. If they use OAuth 2 or SAML, they will work with this SSO extension for Azure Active Directory. It's a neat new powerful feature that we're giving you, and it's in private preview today, and we look forward to your feedback.
To help developers take advantage of all the identity features available in our platform, we recommend that all developers use the Microsoft Authentication Library, MSAL, and the Microsoft Graph API in their application development. In June of 2020, we announced the end of support timelines for Azure Active Directory, Authentication Library, ADAL, as well as Azure AD Graph. Although we're no longer adding functionality to features in ADAL and AD Graph, we're providing 2 years of support while everyone migrates to MSAL and Microsoft Graph. For updating to MSAL, we have a landing page, aka MS Update to MSAL, that will point you to the right migration guide for your platform and scenario. One of the frequently asked questions we get is, how do I tell if my app is using ADAL or MSAL? Well, one way to tell is by looking at the source code, and you can either look at the class name or the package name. And this table illustrates looking for a string such as authentication context within your code, and then you'd be able to tell that it is on ADAL and needs to be migrated to MSAL, which uses class names such as public client application or confidential client application. How difficult is it to migrate from ADAL to MSAL? It's often very straightforward. You get to keep your existing app registration in Azure Active Directory that you're using with ADAL. But in your source code, we're going to make some modifications. First, we'll put in the new package name and namespace. Here are some of the other API differences. The first is scopes. In ADAL, your app provides a resource URI, and all the permissions are statically configured ahead of time in the portal. In MSAL, your app can ask for a list of permissions at runtime. The permissions that you request are dynamic because you don't have to statically configure them in your app registration. You can ask for permissions incrementally. For example, you don't need to ask permission to the user's calendar until the user clicks the scheduling button within your application. But if you want to migrate quickly and keep the existing behavior, you can use the app resource URI and append ./default as the MSAL scope, and it'll use the static permissions just like before. There are some differences in how to construct the client. There are separate classes for public clients, like mobile or desktop apps, and confidential clients, like servers or daemons. You also don't need to pass the client ID with each request to get a token. It's only necessary to pass it in while constructing the class. Last, in MSAL, we have strongly typed exceptions. This allows you to have more robust error handling rather than extracting and comparing error code strings. This was a relatively simple example, and as you can see, it was straightforward to migrate. For more information on how to migrate your application, visit the AKA link, Migrate to MSAL, and there's a landing page that will identify the various scenarios and how you migrate. So how can you get started? Well, we have a number of resources available to you. You can also find links to some of the demos that we were providing today. You can find us on GitHub, Stack Overflow, User Voice, Twitter, and more. A big thank you for attending our session.